Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Chris. This is Stylist Meets Vinyl. Guys, I am very happy to be making this video because it is a vinyl finds video. And I love showing you guys my recent pickups and everything that I'm spinning recently. So I had some interesting developments in my previous, couple of my previous record vinyl find videos. I mentioned that I put an ad on Kijiji that I would buy records, and I got a response from Terry, who I have since purchased a bunch of records from him. But I also got another response from somebody else, and I picked up a record from him, one that I've been looking for a while. So that one's pretty special. That one I'll show. I'll show just some ones that I've picked up at the record store, and then also my uncle. He knew that I had my channel, and he told me he had a box of records, and he told me to come by, and he gave me his records. There were about 30 of them in the box. I'm still going through them. Some of them are kind of like not really my style. Some of them are. I've picked a handful of them out already that I already know I'm going to keep, and then the other ones I still want to listen to them and see if I'm going to add them to my collection or not. So the ones that I've picked out already, I will show you today. So make sure you stick to the end for that one. But I got a big stack, so let's just get right into it right away. Okay, the first album I'm going to show you, this is a band, one of my favorite bands. I saw them in concert last month, and I picked this album up there. This is Big Wreck, But for the Sun. Big Wreck is a Canadian-American band. They were formed in Massachusetts in the late 90s. The frontman of the band and the primary songwriter, Ian Thornley, he's Canadian. The rest of the band at the time were American. They had mostly success up in Canada here, a little bit of success. A lot of Canadian bands get success kind of like in the border states that are close to Canada, and so Big Wreck had that, but they never really took off in the US. But as I say, they're one of my favorite bands. These guys are like hard rock, yeah, hard rock. I've seen them categorized as a bunch of different things, but the thing I love about Big Wreck, Ian Thornley is an amazing vocalist, and he's an amazing guitarist. And they had another guitarist as well, Brian Doherty, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. And both of them were amazing instrumentalists. Big Wreck is a band that they have like a guitar solo in pretty much every song that they've ever released. So if you like guitar solos, you might really like Big Wreck. And also Ian Thornley, as I said, he's an amazing vocalist. I would compare him vocally to like Chris Cornell. I've always said he's like a Canadian Chris Cornell. He has amazing pipes, and this is their 2019 album called But for the Sun. It's a great album. It's not my favorite by them. Unfortunately, like they're a band that they have barely any of their albums are even available on vinyl, which is why when I went to their show back in April, I picked this up, and I got like the second or third last copy there at the venue. So I was really happy to pick this up. They only have like 2 other albums that are available on vinyl, and so I knew that I really wanted this, and so I'm super happy to have this and add this to my collection. Big Wreck, if you're listening, get more albums on vinyl because people will want them, okay? So there's my first one, Big Wreck, But for the Sun. Next up, this is another Canadian Connection band, Canadian-American Connection. This is Arcade Fire, We. This is their newest. This just came out like last week. So I actually haven't even listened to this yet. I avoided the radio, and I avoided streaming the album. And it's funny because there's G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl. He just released a video of like, how do you know you're addicted to vinyl? And one of them was if you avoid streaming an album because you want to listen to it first on vinyl. And that's exactly what I had already done with this. So really happy to have added this. I just got this a couple days ago, so I still haven't even spun it yet. I'm hearing good things though from people that I trust, that it's good. I love Arcade Fire. They're, as I said, they're like an American-Canadian band. a couple of members are from Quebec. I think they formed in Quebec, but the base of the band is from Houston, Texas. And I have their debut album, Funeral. Suburbs is amazing. Arcade Fire is a band that I'll probably end up owning their entire collection on vinyl. So I'm super happy to have We. If you guys have heard this, let me know in the comments what you think about it. And I'll probably do a review at some point, or I'll show it again and I'll let you guys know what I think. But super happy to have this. Okay, next one I mentioned, this is the one, the guy from Kijiji who contacted me. He had this album, and I was super happy to find it because this is like minty, or near mint, whatever, you know? This is Maggot Brain, Funkadelic. So this is from 1971. I think this is their Funkadelic's third album. This is just like the name of the band says, this is like psychedelic funk. Some really searing guitar on this one, some really like toe tapping, head bopping funk on this. So if you like psychedelic and you like funk, this is one to pick up. This is obviously a reissue because originals go for pretty expensive. If you ever find one, pick it up, even if it's not your thing, because you can probably sell it for a decent price. Yeah, so this is, the guy offered me a really great deal on this. It is, as I say, like mint condition. I've spun it a couple times and it just sounds amazing. So really happy to have Maggot Brain finally. This is like this is sort of a list record of mine. Okay, next up from the record shop, this is Santana, Caravanserai. This is, I want to say, their third. Don't quote me on that. I think it's from 1972. This album sounds, what I would say, it sounds exactly like what this cover looks like. Imagine kind of being out in the desert, you're riding on a camel, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're seeing things like there's a mirage in the distance, you think there's some water there, and it's not, and you know, you're gonna pass out from heat stroke. That's kind of how I think that this album sounds. There's not a ton of vocals on this. It's you know, Latin infused psychedelic blues rock, I guess. Really happy to have this. I have Abraxas already, and there's their self-titled, it's called Santana with the lion on the front that I still haven't picked up, so I will pick this up. This is a really nice one, Caravanserai. Okay, next, this is a band that you guys have heard me talk about before. This is ELO. This is an album called Time. This is from 1981. This is a concept album by them. I've spoken before about their other concept album, which is 1974's El Dorado, which is my favorite album from them. This is from 81, also a concept album. This is, the concept of this album is about a guy who gets transported, kind of, you know, mysteriously transported to the year like 2094 or something like that. And he's in the same area as he was back in 1981, except it's like 110 years later, and things have changed. And there's the woman that he loves is back in 1981, and so he's just pining for her the whole time and not really able to enjoy his time in the future. I read that this is the first ever concept album about time travel. Maybe that's true. This is also, so like ELO, obviously in the name, Electric Light Orchestra. They have a lot of strings, they have a lot of orchestra in their albums. This one is a bit of a departure for them, so I think it kind of divided fans a little bit because people were like, hey, where's the strings, where's the orchestra? This is a lot more synthy. You're gonna hear that 80s sound, but some really nice tracks on this one. The opener, Twilight, is really cool. Ticket to the Moon is great. Another Heart Breaks, awesome. And yeah, just a really cool, I'm really happy to have picked this up. Super cheap, also, like not too difficult to find. Okay, next up, this is one I've seen around and I've been meaning to pick up, but just, you know, it's like Sometimes you're in the mood, sometimes you're not, sometimes you pass it over, sometimes you pick it up. I finally picked up, this is Shh by 10 Years After. So I first heard about 10 Years After on the Woodstock album and the Woodstock movie. They do like a searing rendition of I'm Going Home. It's like 9 or 10 minutes or something. And who is it? Is it Alv? I always get it mixed up. Is it Al? Yeah, Alvin Lee, not Arthur Lee. Arthur Lee is from Love. Alvin Lee is from 10 Years After. So Alvin Lee does a really great, like, he's the guitarist, and just an awesome rendition. So that's when I first heard about them, and this is one by them that, you know, I'd heard was good. Picked it up. It was a blind buy, super cheap as well, and it's in great condition. And this is a really fun, like, blues rock type album. Yeah, so super happy to have this one. Okay, next up, another guy that I think I've spoken about a couple times on my channel. This is Johnny Winter. This album is Johnny Winter and, which was the name of his band. This is a live concert by them. Johnny Winter is super fun. Another like blues rock guy. All of his albums are pretty cheap, and as far as I know, the ones that I've heard are pretty good. So I think I picked this up for like $5. This is, you know, he does a good cover, Johnny Winter, a nice cover. So there's Jumpin' Jack Flash, Stones cover, as well as a nice rock and roll medley on here. Great Balls of Fire, Long Tall Sally, whole lot of shaking going on. And then he also covers Johnny Be Good on this one. So this is just him and his band having fun live on stage. So really happy to add this to my blues rock collection. Okay, next up, this is a Canadian band. This band is Lighthouse. This is from early 70s. I'm not sure exactly when. This is like psychedelic jazz rock. If you like Chicago or War, then this will be right up your alley. What drew me, I just love this cover. I think it's great. And there's actually an alternate cover of this that I think is the rare version, and it's like darker with like a lighthouse on it. But this, I just saw this, I'm like, oh yeah, and this was like $3, and it's a nice matted cover. So Lighthouse, as I say, they're Canadian, so they're kind of staples of like, or at least One Fine Morning, that's the name of this album. That song, that single is like a staple of like classic rock channels here up in Canada. But, and that song, like, you know, I'm not crazy about that song, but this is another fun album, and like for $3, sure, yeah, I'm picking it up. Definitely a bit psych, jazzy. You're gonna hear horns, trumpets, all that stuff in here. So this is one, again, happy to add to the collection. Okay, now, so those were my like record store pickups recently, and the guy I met on Kijiji. Now I'm gonna get into the albums that I got from my uncle. Now my uncle is from Birmingham, England, and he has some albums that kind of connect him back to Birmingham, and he was a big fan of the Moody Blues. And so he gave me his Moody Blues collection. So in one of my previous Vinyl Finds videos, I talked about picking up Days of Future Past, which is the second album from the Moody Blues. I had heard it's like one of the best, or at least it's on like the list of like great prog rock albums. So I picked that one up, and then it just so happened that he had basically, he didn't even have Days of Future Past, he had basically all of the other ones from that time period. So the Moody's broke up in the early 70s, and then they reformed again in the late 70s and early 80s. And all of those albums from the late 70s and early 80s, at least as far as I've read, are not as good as the ones from the mid to late 60s and early 70s. And so this is my stack of Moody Blues albums. So this is all in chronological order. I don't think these are originals, but these are all in really good shape. So I'm really happy to add them. And the Moody's too, they have like look at this cover. Like, this is an awesome looking cover. Some really cool, so the Moody Blues are like psychedelic prog, I guess you'd call them. So this is In Search of the Lost Chord. I think there's, so what is this? Voices in the Sky, Ride My Seesaw. Those were the two that I knew from this one, but the album sounds good. Then we've got On the Threshold of a Dream. This is their next one. I don't really know any of the songs on this one, but as I say, these are kind of like the real sweet spot for the Moody Blues, these albums here. So they're going in the collection. So On the Threshold of a Dream. Then we've got the Moody's. This is To Our Children's Children. And if you look up like the best Moody Blues albums, all of these are listed here, and depending on like which source you're looking at, different ones will be ranked like top, number 1, number 2. This is one of them that I've seen like as their best album, but I need to give all of these a couple more spins before I can really give an actual like review on them. But To Our Children's Children, and these also have like some really nice artwork. Some nice gatefold. That's really cool. Them just like playing around this like cool fire. Okay, yes, and so then we've got A Question of Balance. Another gatefold with like a nice psychedelic cover here. Question of Balance, and then we've got Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which is any musician will know E, G, B, D, F is like the chords. So this is really cool. Also another really cool cover. This is like a matted cover. Feels pretty cool. Another gatefold. And then the last one, the Seventh Sojourn. This is actually their 8th album called Seventh Sojourn. Another really cool cover. So like some really awesome artwork from these guys here. And they're all in great condition. I'm really happy to be adding them to my collection as well. So there's my Moody stack. Now, to finish off is another one of, so I should mention, so the Moody Blues, they're from Birmingham, England, and my uncle's a Brummie as well, so he loves that Birmingham connection. And then my uncle is also a huge Buddy Holly fan, and I was happy that there's a handful of Buddy Holly albums in his box that he gave me. Now, I wouldn't call myself like a big Buddy Holly fan, but I do respect his kind of place in rock and roll history and the things that he did. I mean, he died when he was 22. He had only released, I think, 2 albums, one with the Crickets and then like 2 solo albums before he passed away. And if anybody knows, so you think of Don McLean, the song American Pie, where he talks about the day the music died. What day was that? The day the music died? That was February 3rd, 1959, which is the day that Buddy Holly died. And the story behind Buddy Holly and his death is really interesting, if you don't know it. So Buddy Holly had booked these, or his manager, whoever, had booked these gigs around the U.S. in the winter of 1959, and they hadn't really taken into account the distance between all of the venues. And so they had this bus that they were taking their band on, and one of the band members, I think it didn't have any heat, so it was really cold. And one of the band members got like frostbite on his toes or his fingers or something. And so Buddy was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm gonna charter a plane to take me from venue to venue after these shows. And he was touring with the Big Bopper and Richie Valens, and they chartered this plane. So there were 4 seats on the plane. The pilot, Buddy Holly, Big Bopper, and Richie Valens. And I think it was Big Bopper and somebody else, another musician whose name escapes me right now. They were kind of trying to decide who gets the last seat on the plane, and they actually flipped a coin. And Big Bopper called, I think it was Big Bopper called heads. The other guy called tails. The coin flipped heads. So Big Bopper got the last seat on the plane. And about an hour after takeoff, the plane crashed and everybody was killed. So that alone just like kind of gives me chills, where it's like, holy crap, your whole life, this guy who, I wish I could remember his name, the guy, like, his life came down to a coin toss. And I guess the pilot, he was using like a new instrument to navigate, and I guess they think that he thought he was ascending, but he was actually descending, and they crashed into a field, and everyone on board died. So that's considered the day the music died. So my uncle gave me some Buddy Holly records. Now these are not in great condition. Like, they're not in bad. The covers are actually worse than what the actual vinyl is. But he was explaining to me about how this album here, so this is a 1958 UK mono. He was explaining this is Buddy's first solo album. He has the Chirping Crickets, which is him with the crickets, and then this is his first solo album from 1959, or 58 actually, I think. And this is a 1958 UK mono, and the cover, these are all on the Coral label. Coral here. You know, as I say, I'm not a huge Buddy Holly fan, but I really appreciate his contribution to rock and roll and rockabilly, and there's a lot of people who are consider him an inspiration. And even the band, the Hollies, is named after Buddy Holly. So there's Buddy Holly. Then there is the Buddy Holly Story. This was released the same month that he passed away. This is a compilation album. The same, it was released in February 1959 after he had died. And then Buddy Holly Story Volume 2. Clearly this is pretty ragged, but the discs are all okay. Like, you can tell they've been played, but they're all okay. They sound good. These are going to be more like historical artifacts for me. I do appreciate the history of music and the history of rock and roll, and having some like original UKs from the late 50s is really cool. The latest album I had was one you may have seen, my Bob Dylan, his self-titled debut. That was from 1962. So now I have 1958, 1959. I think this one is 1960. And then the last is the the album's not called Buddy Holly Lives. It's actually called Buddy Holly, The Crickets, 20 Golden Greats. This is from, I think, 1978 was released, and then you've just got all of his hits on here. So, as I say, happy to add those just for the historical factor of them. It's not something that I probably would have bought, and they're in good enough condition to keep, but they're not super valuable. So, guys, let me know what you think about my stash here. I think that was about 18 records that I showed you. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any of these, please like the video if you're digging my content. Consider subscribing. I love telling kind of stories about the records and you know, little tidbits of trivia. So if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. And make sure you guys come right back here where Stylus meets Vinyl. Thanks. See ya.